Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil mursaleen. Sayyidina wa Habibina Maulana Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana. Allahumma 'allimna ma yanfa'una wa zidna 'ilma. Ya muqallibal qulub, thabbit qulubana ala dinik. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, last day in Makkah, Alhamdulillah. I was trying to finish the Makkah Seerah in the Makkah days. So we'll see a summarized version, inshallah, of the Makkah days. Where did we end yesterday? The first Hijrah. So we ended yesterday with the first Hijrah. And what happened was that after the first Hijrah, because the number of Muslims, I think there were about 80 number, they left Mecca. It was almost like an alarm. You know, what happens is as Islam is growing, initially some people are like very anti, some people are neutral. You know, people are at different levels of opposition. And then as people are leaving now in more and more numbers, there's greater alarm then for the change happening in society, and therefore the persecution and the become stronger. And one of the famous stories is on the attempt. Can the students in the back hear me? Jamila, can you guys hear me? Or is it soft? It's a bit soft. Soft. See, the students are sitting here, so I came to sit by the students. We can move. The students are come to the teacher. Now there's no the teacher will come to the students. How far can the mic reach? But yeah, how far can they show it? Come on, Coach, you can just move, coach. Let's stand with you. Okay, so Bismillah. Okay, so as I was mentioning that after the departure of the Muslims to Abyssinia, Habasha, the society becomes more strong in opposition. And this is we're going to find in all societies, as you differ from the power, the more you differ, the more you must expect opposition. So even as us as Muslims in South Africa, if we become a stronger force, we must expect a stronger pushback. And this you're going to expect everywhere. And what is this? It's happening in Europe quite a bit as well. Where Islam is becoming stronger, parts of North America as well, and you will expect a stronger pushback. And this is the tilka al-ayyam nudawilu bayna nas. This is the days Allah rotates between people, the ups and the downs of life. And so this was the occasion where Umar radiallahu anhu, he was like an action man. You know, some people are more deliberate and planning and strategy, and some people are more into action and decisive action. So while they were still talking about what they're going to do, Umar says, no, he's going to kill the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And so as he's walking there to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, at this time he was about 20, they say he was 26 years old, still a young man. And as he was walking to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the Sahaba, Nu'aym, he asked him, he could see where he's going, and he says, I'm going to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then Nu'aym says to him, why don't you first see to your house? Why? Because he wants to buy time to go warn the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then Nu'aym said, then Umar said, what about my house? And then Umar says, your sister Fatima and her husband Sa'id have become Muslim. So he changes direction, and they were actually there with a teacher. His name was Khabbab. He was a teacher of Quran, and used to have a manuscript of the Quran. So they busy reciting Quran, and when they hear Umar approaching, Khabbab goes to hide away, because people are scared of Umar radiallahu anhu. And anyway, and then he enters, and then they asked him, he asked, what is this? And then he started actually attacking them physically. He attacked the brother, actually his brother-in-law, and he also attacked his sister as well out of anger at the moment. And he actually slapped his sister as well. So much so that she was bleeding. And when he did that to her, she said, we are Muslims and we will stay Muslims. We believe in Allah and His Messenger. But when he saw the blood from her face, his heart softened a bit. He got some pause. His heart softened a bit. And then he asked her, like, so what are you reciting? Give me that script that you are reciting. And then they say, no, okay, you have to first take a wash, a ghusl, because you're not pure. and he takes the ghusl, the wash, and then they start reciting the first few verses of Surah Taha. And I think for us who are not Arabs, these accounts help us understand the power of the Quran. Because here's a man on the way to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He gets a script with a few words that says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Taha, ma anzalna alayka al-Qur'ana litashqa. Ma anzalna alayka, we have not sent the book down, alayka. Alayka means what? Upon you. Therefore, the you referring there goes back to Taha. Therefore, Taha becomes one of the names of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because Taha ma anzalna alayka. We have not sent down the Quran upon you, litashqa, to cause you any difficulty. Illa tadhkiratan liman yakhsha, except a reminder for the one who has fear and awe of Allah Ta'ala. Tanzilan, it is a revelation mimman khalaqa al-arda, from the one that has created the earth, was samawati al-ula, and the lofty heavens. Ar-Rahmanu, the most merciful. They say that the word Ar-Rahman wasn't even used commonly in the language, because there was no being that would fit the usage of Ar-Rahman. It is a what you call Seeratul Mubalagha, an intensive form of the word Rahim. So a normal, merciful, loving person is a Rahim. But the Rahman is such an intensive form that it was not in the usage at the time. So the Ar-Rahman was like a new word to them. Ar-Rahman, على العرش استوى, the one who has assumed control of the arsh. له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. To him and him alone belongs the heavens and the earth. وما بينهما, and whatever is between the heavens and the earth. وما تحت الثرى, and whatever is even below the earth as well. Inside of the earth. So these few verses of Surah Taha is recited, and many occasions like this you find in the Seerah, where they hear a few verses of the Quran, and immediately they can detect that this is not the words of a poet or the words of a man. And one of the things that is difficult for us to understand is what is the difference between great speech, high speech, and miraculous speech. Because even in English we have, let's call it high speech. You know, maybe you're going to quote some Shakespeare or some high poet, and that's going to be great speech. So you get normal speech, great speech. So they also had normal speech, and they had great speech, because they were the poets of society. You know, the eloquent poets. But for them, when they read this was normal speech, nor was it great speech. This was miraculous speech. This was miraculous speech. And one of the reasons why is because what the Quran does, it uses language, the Arabic language, in a way that wasn't used before. It uses words, sequences, tenses in a way that wasn't used before. So some ulama would refer to it as a language within the language. So if you sit in the hadith class, it is distinctly different to Arabic from a Quran class. You know, you can almost like automatically hear this is a person's words and this is Quran. Just the way it's formulated, the way it flows, the way the feel of it. Even being non-Arab, you can hear that difference. Or with a little bit of studies, you can hear the difference. And so with the Quran is that, and I read this, there's an interesting book, I think it's called The Miraculous Language of the Quran. One of the ones called, he's a PhD in Arabic. He takes each surah and he tells you, in this verse, this word was never used like this before. In this verse, this kind of tense wasn't used like this before. In this verse. And then he comes up with that almost like in every single verse. So it's not like there's miraculous stuff here and there in the Quran. He takes one surah and he tells you that there's more new stuff in that surah than there are verses. That there's no precedent before. And that's the difference, and that's hard for us to understand. But because he asked the question, he says, what is the difference between great speech and miraculous speech? It's that it is new. It has never been used that way before. So it's like it blows them away. And then Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, he then immediately asks, where's Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? I want to go and I want to become Muslim. And then he goes to Darul Arqam. Darul Arqam is just outside outside Safa. In fact, if you go out by the Safa gate on the first tower, you'll see Arqam gate there. You go out by Safa and you go not towards the right, we go back to the hotel, go to the left, you see Arqam gate there. That is where the house of Arqam was, the first madrasa in Islam. And so he goes there, and Nu'aym is there, because Nu'aym went to warn them. And then he knocks on the door, he wants to enter, and he still has his sword, he still has his hand in his sword. And then they say, who is it? They say, it's Umar. And so Hamza, remember Hamza was the one who was so angry, he hit the guy with the bow and he became Muslim. Hamza says, let him come in. If he has good intent, we will give him lots of good. But if he has some evil intent, we'll take his sword and we'll kill him with our own sword. So Hamza also was a guy. Umar was like a guy, and Ahmed was also a guy. You come, we will kill you with your own sword. And what had happened also was that previously the Prophet ﷺ used to make dua, and he used to make dua that either Umar should become Muslim or Abu al-Hakam, which is Abu Jahl, because they were powerful members of society. So he used to make dua for them, like, oh Allah, give me one of them to become Muslim. And so Umar was the one which the dua was accepted for. And then he goes, and then he takes his shahada with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they say before this, Muslims used to like be very secretive about this Islam. But he went to the house of Abu Jahl. He knocked on the door. He still welcome. Oh, my cousin. He says, I'm Muslim now. You know what I mean? Then he went to the Kaaba. He started making tawaf like allowed, because no one would dare to touch Umar. Even on his hijrah, people used to flee. But he went and he said, I'm making hijrah now. Whoever wants to make their children orphans, you can try and stop me. Umar was like that. He was just like, he had that power and that authority. And so now Umar becomes Muslim. And as you see what's happening now, as Muslims become stronger, the opposition becomes stronger. As Muslims become stronger, the opposition becomes stronger. And then what they do then is that they decide that they're going to draw up a document. And the document would be an agreement to boycott, and we still have this now, they're called sanctions now, to boycott the Banu Hashim. Remember, Hashim was the trader. So all of his offspring, they're going to boycott. What does boycott mean? You can't marry their family, they can't marry your family. You can't sell anything to them, and you can't buy from them. And so they decided to boycott them. And then the clan of Muttalib, remember Hashim had a brother, Muttalib, and he didn't want to take part, so they boycotted Hashim also. The point I want to make is that what they did there, they said, we're boycotting you. The Muttalib tribe doesn't also want to join the boycott because they're close family relations. So we're boycotting you as well. And we find this in the world today, where there's a group that is deemed evil, and any group who supports them is also part of the evil. They get names like the axis of evil. The axis of evil. They give these things names, like Bush famously said, you are either with us or against us, before he invaded Iraq. So this is what happens. And then they boycott them for about just over 2 years. During the boycott, during the boycott, there's a great amount of difficulty, because in the desert you can't eat, you can't have lots of trade. There's lots of poverty. Sometimes there's a bit of famine also amongst the believers, and many of them had lost their wealth by then. Khadija had lost their wealth, Abu Bakr had lost their wealth, because they spent all their wealth just to try to buy secretly here and there from the people. And then during this time, there was an interesting moment where Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the mataf, on the haram, and she walks up, and then Jamil is the wife of Abu Lahab. In the Quran, tabbat yada abi lahab wa amratuhu, his wife is Jamil. So Jamil, she walks up to Abu Bakr and asks, where's Muhammad? So where's Prophet Muhammad right next to her? So it was a strange thing. So she's looking at Abu Bakr and the Prophet, and she asks Abu Bakr, where's Muhammad? Because Allah in that moment had removed the sight of him. And she used to have this poem. She used to say, Muhammad means the one who is praised. Mudammam is the one who is dispraised. So she used to make fun of him by saying Mudammam. To say Mudammaman asayna wa dinahu qalayna wa amrahu abayna. Mudammam, we disobey and we hate his we disobey his command and we hate his deen. And then she walked off. And the Prophet's attitude was beautiful. He says, look, Allah protects me. She's insulting someone called Mudammam and Muhammad. And that was his attitude, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Eventually, after about 2 years passed, some of those amongst the Quraysh felt sorry for him. They felt a bit of pity for them. Not all of them were bought into it completely initially. And then a few of them started speaking to each other, and eventually they wanted to lift the ban. And so when they wanted to lift the ban, there was some discussion back and forth. No, we're not going to do it. Yes, we are going to do it. But then one of them goes into the Kaaba and he takes out the document that had the original writing of the ban. It was written like a document. And the whole document had been eaten except for Bismillah. Just the Bismillah part of the bottom, because they should believe in Allah. The top part of Bismillah was left, and the rest of the document was all eaten up. And it was enough to convince those who were unsure that the ban should be lifted. And with that, the ban was lifted from them. And then in the following year is going to be the year of sadness. And the year of sadness is called Am al-Khuzn. And Am al-Khuzn is one of the, when they asked the Prophet ﷺ about his most difficult time, he said his most difficult time was Taif. It was the most difficult time in his life, and it happened in Am al-Khuzn. In Am al-Khuzn, Taif happened immediately after Am al-Khuzn, but these are difficult years. So the first thing happens is that Khadija radiallahu anha is now 65 years old. They were married for 25 years. And then she passes away in this time. And this was a big loss for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he never stopped loving her. He never stopped loving her to such an extent that Aisha radiallahu anha said that no one made me more jealous than Khadija. Even though she didn't really meet Khadija. But the amount of love he always spoke about for Khadija, even though he had other wives with Aisha, the wife that he didn't have with Aisha made him the most jealous. In fact, in the one, she was a feisty, mashallah, anha, Aisha. She says, like, why do you talk about this old woman every time? Allah has replaced you with better. And so he says, Wallahi, Allah did not replace me with better. Why? Because she was the one when I had nothing, she stood by me. When I had nothing, she supported me. And then she always used to boast that she's the only wife that wasn't previously married. She was the only virgin, basically, the Prophet ﷺ had. And he used to tell her that when Khadija married him, he was the he was the one who was married before. So he always defended her, radiallahu anha. And she's buried here in Mu'alla, not too far away from here. She's buried here. May Allah Ta'ala elevate her ranks. She's really the mother of this deen, the one who supported this deen from the very beginning. Yeah. And I think that those things you go through when you're married in your early days, it bonds people. You know, because you normally when you get married young, you're establishing yourself, and you have basic means, and later on in life maybe you get blessed with more comforts and more, all of those things. But the togetherness through the struggle is something which is dear and sweet. It is something which bonds the hearts. And so sometimes life is like this paradox, because when you don't have things, you want more. And when you want more, then you remember the good old days where things are simple. The good old days where things are simple. And then you're like, because the more you have, the more sometimes you have more complexity in life, and life just becomes a different story altogether. I remember I didn't have much difficulty in my life, but I remember like when I lived in Egypt with my wife, we lived for about 4 months. We only had 2 plates, and the kitchen was never dirty. It was like a simple thing, because we only had 2 plates and 2 cups. And it was like because the kitchen was never dirty. Because there was nothing else to get dirty besides the 2 plates and the 2 cups. So in that simplicity, there's a lot of beauty also. Now you have like a million things and everything is dirty, and you have to like look after so many things. Subhanallah. And so therefore, it used to be that many of the Sahabas that after the Prophet died, they became very wealthy. Because remember, after the Prophet died, the whole of Arabia is conquered. After that, the whole of the almost known world is conquered. And many of them, when they used to put the food out, they used to burst into tears. Why? Because they said that This wasn't the hal that we were with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we see ourselves in those days better than we are in these days. Because now they became wealthy and the meat became abundant and the food and the comforts and the houses and the slaves, life became comfortable. But in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's no fire from his house for the whole month. And even Aisha used to cry sometimes when they used to lay the table and she had to eat because of the abundance. Because this wasn't the hal of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of the most profound lessons is that wealth will never make you happy. The only thing that will make you happy really is purpose. Like if you have a purpose in your life, you have something to work towards, you're working for something. Yes, you could work towards some material comfort, which is fine, because you want to create something for your family. Or you're working towards your education, you're working towards your society, but you have a goal in life. One of the worst things in life is not to have a purpose. Like if you don't have a purpose and you have lots of wealth, it's one of the most depressing things, because you don't actually have to work. And so, while we don't like to struggle, there's blessings in the struggle. And that's how life is. Like we don't like to maybe work every morning, Monday morning, wake up, have clients, do all this work sometimes, like, why am I doing this? I wish I can retire. But there's blessing in that, because what else is to do besides the thing that you are supposed to do with your life? You must do something, and you can't have empty entertainment. And I remember that amongst young people, they like to speak about financial freedom all the time. They must find the work they can do for the rest of their life. they must find work they can do for the rest of their life. You don't try to find finance and you can do nothing for the rest of your life. You must find meaningful work you can do till the day you die. This is the key to success. Find something meaningful to do until the day you die. Because you can't find happiness in empty entertainment. It's not going to work. And then the second big loss was his uncle, Abu Talib. So Abu Talib was his protector. And Abu Talib actually was the reason that the Prophet didn't face initially a lot of physical abuse. Is because he was protected by Abu Talib. And Abu Talib is on his deathbed, and he then calls all the nobles, like all the rulers. And then he wants to basically try to make peace between the nobles and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they say all they want is they want for him to leave them to do their deen. They'll even make him the leader. He can be the king. Just leave him. He says, I don't mind. I just have one word you must say. The only word I want from you is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And then they obviously don't refuse this. How can we make all our gods into one God? But in this narration, Abu Talib says something interesting. He says, son of my brother, my nephew, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what you said to them, I didn't see it as you taking away anything from them. Like you weren't taking away anything from them, from their position, from their power, of anything. And then when he saw his uncle, having this response, he told his uncle, just enter Islam so that I have something on Qiyamah to argue for you. Just say the Shahada so that I can argue something. And then he said, the uncle said something interesting. He says, if I didn't fear that Quraysh would say that I am saying the words because I'm scared of death, I would say them. Like I'm going to say it now, the Quraysh will say, no, you see, you're scared of death, and because in their psyche, bravery is everything. Like your manhood. Now almost like you're scared of death, now you're taking your Shahada. And so in the end, when his death came close, there's a narration that Abbas, this time Abbas wasn't Muslim at that. Abbas put his ear close to the lips of Abu Talib. And then Abbas says he heard the shahad. But the Prophet ﷺ says he didn't hear the shahad. And so sometimes on Abu Talib, there is the majority of opinions that didn't become Muslim. But there is sometimes divergent opinions with regard to him. Yeah. And now the Prophet ﷺ has no protector. Because now his actual protector is Abu Lahab. Like, they call his official tribe chief protector Abu Lahab. So his enemy is his protector. And with this, he faces a lot of abuse. With this, they say one day he was cooking food and someone came by and threw like foul meat into his food. One day he was making salah as well at the Kaaba. And someone took the intestines of an animal and threw it onto his back. He was making salah as well, and they took dirt and threw it into his face and over his head. And the one to remove it was Fatima, radiallahu anha. And Fatima has a very special place because the other daughters are married off. They're married off, they're not in the house, but Fatima is in the house at this time, radiallahu anha. And she is the one that's seeing her father struggle and seeing the battle for Islam. So she has a very special place in the heart of the Muslims. And then he decides to go to Bani Thaqif. Who's Bani Thaqif? Bani Thaqif is going to be in charge of Taif. I don't even remember your Zukhruf class. What is one of the arguments they used to make? Now, how did the ayah go again? I actually supposed to check the ayah before I came. Where they were in Surah Zukhruf, they tell the Prophet ﷺ, didn't Allah find a great man from one of the two cities instead? The two great cities of that time was Makkah and Taif. And from Taif, the tribe is Bani Thaqif. They're in charge of Taif. So in Makkah, he's not managed to find support, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he decides to go to the other great city, which is Taif, Bani Thaqif. And he goes down to Taif, and then he speaks to some of the leaders there. And they give him a very bad response. They said, if Allah sent you, like if you're the one Allah sent, then I should tear down the cloth of the Kaaba. Meaning, like, how could Allah send you as the messenger? Another one said, couldn't Allah find someone better than you to send? The other one said that if you're a messenger, then I can't speak to you. And if you're a liar, I can't speak to you. If you're a messenger, I can't speak to you. And you're a liar, I can't speak to you. And then as the Prophet ﷺ rises from there, they get like the slaves of society and like the low people of society to basically hurl abuse at the Prophet ﷺ and to stone him as well out of Taif. And he says this is the most difficult day of his life. Is the day he was like physically driven out of Taif. And then the angel of the mountains came and he says, like, if you want, command me and I will crush these mountains upon these people. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua may the offspring of the people of Taif become believers. And this is Rahmah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Even when it's his enemy, he has Rahmah to them. And then there's a famous dua that comes in some of the narrations where at the end of Taif, he makes this dua. It's a moving dua. He says, Allahumma ilayka ashku da'fa quwwati. Because here the Prophet ﷺ has been calling people to Islam, but things are getting worse. You know, like he lost his wife, he lost his protector now, he's facing abuse. It's not almost like you feel like there's no way out. He went to Taif now, the other hope also gone. And this is, for me, part of the life lesson. Sometimes you get in a situation where you think there's no way out. You know, you feel stuck. And The Prophet ﷺ made this dua. He said, Allahumma ilayka ashku da'fa quwwati. Oh Allah, I complain to you about my weakness. Like he blames himself. Ya Allah, I'm so weak. وَقِلَّةَ حِيلَتِي, and my lack of strategy and plans. وَهَوَانِي عَلَى النَّاسِ, and I complain to you that I am so low before people. Ya Arhamar Rahimin, oh, the most merciful of those who show mercy. Anta Rabbul Mustad'afin, you are the Lord of those who are weak. Wa Anta Rabbi, and you are my Lord. La ila man takilluni, to who, Allah, are you going to entrust me? Ila ba'idin yatajahhumuni, are you going to send me to some stranger that's going to abuse me? Or ila aduwin malakatu amri, or to some enemy that's going to be in charge of me. And then he says at the end something beautiful. He says, in lam yakun bika ghadabun, but if you are not angry with me, Allah, alayya fala ubali, I don't care. So he says, he complains about his weakness, and he asks Allah, to who are you entrusting me? But he says that if you, Allah, despite my weakness, if you're not upset with me, if this is not a sign of your anger, then I don't care, I will bear it. I will go through it. غير أن عافيتك هو أوسع لي, except that if I had to have more ease, it would be better for me. أعوذ بنور وجهك الذي أشرقت له الظلمات, I seek refuge in your light that fills up the darkness. وصلح عليه أمر الدنيا والآخرة, and reforms the matters of this world and the next life. أن يحل علي غضبك, that I should ever receive your anger. أو أن ينزل بي سخطك, or that your displeasure should fall upon me. And he makes this dua. And the lesson from this dua is that if you are doing the right thing and you face the wrong outcome, you don't have to worry. If you are doing the right thing and you have the wrong outcome, you don't have to worry. Meaning what? You did the right thing, but the outcome was wrong. You don't have to worry. You can make dua for a better outcome, but you have to accept. Maybe someone gets married with a good niyyah. You know, they made the intention, they married someone with teen, good character, and they got married for that reason, and didn't work out. They did the right thing with the right intention. Things don't work out. What must you be concerned about? Did you do the right thing? You don't be concerned about the results. So this is the events of Ta'if. And then after Ta'if, from the lowest moment comes the highest moment. And they say the Prophet ﷺ, he was sleeping in the Hijr. The Hijr is that semicircle next to the Kaaba. He was sleeping in the Hijr, and he says that Jibreel ﷺ came to him and he tapped him with his foot. And then he woke up, he saw nothing, back to sleep. And Jibreel ﷺ came a second time. That's how you feel in the morning sometimes now. After your hike, someone taps you, wake up, or nothing, go back to sleep again. And the third time, and he rose, and Jibreel ﷺ then took him to the gate of the Haram. And at the gate of the Haram there was a white beast. It was like a horse that had wings. And he said with every stride it will go as far as the horizon, which is the Buraq. And then he gets onto the Buraq, and then he moves from here to Aqsa. And Aqsa, he leads all the Anbiya in prayer. Also a beautiful place to go to Aqsa, to go stand in Aqsa, and to think that every prophet was here. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was here. And then from there, they say he was offered two glasses, a glass of milk and a glass of wine. And he took the milk and he left the wine. And this was a sign of his deen, sign of it was then said to him, you've been guided to the pure way. And wine is not for your ummah. And then he started going up with the Buraq. And there are detailed narrations of him going up and meeting different prophets at different levels until he comes to the seventh heaven. And he comes to the Lottery. And there, Jibreel alayhi salam, he cannot pass. And the divine light is so bright that it cannot be held. It cannot be, no one can bear it besides Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And in that, he receives the salah. He receives the salah to be 50 times per day. And then Jibreel alayhi salam, Jibreel, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then comes down. And then Nabi Musa says that your people won't be able to manage 50 a day. Go ask Allah for less. And then they go up and Allah decreases by 10. Goes 40, comes down again, 30, down again, 20, down again, 10. And Musa says, no, they're not going to be able to manage. But we'll go from 10 to 0, then from 10 to 5. And even at 5, Nabi Musa said again, the Prophet says, I'm shy, I can't go back up again. And this was the time when the 5 salahs were basically instituted. And then he came back, and then he came back to the masjid again, here at the Kaaba, and he started telling people about it. And the Quraysh were overjoyed when they heard this. Why were they overjoyed? Because no one is going to believe this. No one is going to believe that you went from here to Jerusalem and back in one night. So they were almost like rejoicing now by this. And then they went to Abu Bakr and they said that, what do you think about your friend? He said he went to Makkah and Jerusalem and back in one night. What Abu Bakr said? If that is a true news, like if he did say that, I believe it. Because I believe in something more amazing that he sees messages from Allah Ta'ala. And when he confirmed this, he was called As-Siddiq, the one who testifies and the one who confirms the truth. And then, after the year of sadness, every year they had Hajj season. And they say that the Prophet ﷺ used to go to the different camps of Hajj and he used to make da'wah. And they say that Abu Bakr used to go with him because Abu Bakr he used to know genealogy. He used to know you always get that person in your family that knows everybody. Like, this is your second cousin's mother's child. You all got some aunt in your family. They know everybody. You don't know anybody, but they know every cousin, every nephew, whoever's married. So Bakr, I know he was like for the tribes. He knew every tribe, who was married to who drinks in where, and he used to actually accompany the Prophet ﷺ from the camp and tell him, this is this tribe, this is how they linked. And the Prophet ﷺ used to go and used to make da'wah to them. And then from one of those camps, there were 6 people there from the Khazraj. Remember the Khazraj? Who's Khazraj again? One of the tribes of Medina. It is a tribe of who? Eh? It is the tribe of the wife of Hashim. Salma, the wife of Hashim, who married to the father of Sheba, or the mother of Sheba. So he goes there, and then these 6 people, he tells them about Islam. They ask him a few questions, and then they tell them that our town has been split apart by hatred and warfare, and may it be that a man like you might unite them. And then they go back as the first Muslim. Well, we spoke yesterday about who? About what was his name yesterday? The first Muslim from Medina. Remember yesterday? The first Muslim from Medina. What was his name? Eh? You see, the women take notes. You guys just sit there every time, like any notes here. Yes, even. Yes, even Mu'adh, mashallah. Even I don't remember. Yes, even Mu'adh, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So they were the next six who became Muslim from Medina. And then what happens then is that they go back and they're still fighting in Medina. They're still fighting in Medina. They speak to the people about Islam there. And then the next season, they bring some more people down. It says here that five of them, of this original six, five of them came back the next season. And they brought seven others, two of whom were from the Aus. So they came, they were Khazraj, and they came with two from the Aus, so they were 12 in total. And then they met at Aqaba. And this is called the first pledge of Aqaba. And it says here that the first pledge of Aqaba was where they said that we pledge. So when they say pledge, it's almost like a bay'ah. Like you take a pact. And they say that we pledge our allegiance to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the night of the first Aqaba, that we would associate nothing with Allah, that we would neither steal, nor commit fornication, nor slay our offspring, nor utter slanders, and that we would not disobey Him in that which was right. And He said, if you fulfill your pledge, then paradise is yours. And if you commit one of these sins and then receive punishment for it in this world, then that shall serve as an expiation. And if you conceal the sin until day of resurrection, then it is for Allah to decide whether to punish you or forgive you, as He wills. And then He sends who with them? He sends Musab radiallahu anhu. Musab ibn Umair. Musab was the eloquent leading young man of Makkah. He sends Musab to teach them, to lead them in Salah. And Musab is the one who basically prepares Medina for the Prophet ﷺ. And he goes and he makes da'wah there. And there's many stories about him and how he was able to start establishing Islam until the next year, if I remember correctly, there were about 70 came down and they had the second pledge. The first pledge is called Bay'atul Nisa. What's Nisa mean? Nisa, women. So the first pledge is called Bay'atul Nisa, the pledge of women. Even though there are only 2 women, there are 10 men. So why is it called the pledge of women? Because the first pledge didn't include the pledge to fight. The first pledge was just to believe in Allah, not commit sins. It wasn't a pledge to fight. And therefore the first pledge is called Bay'atul Nisa. But the second pledge, I think there were about 70 people, they pledged to defend the Prophet ﷺ as if he was one of them. Meaning what if he's going to be attacked, they're going to stand with him in battle. That's the difference about the second pledge. And so that's going to be the second pledge. And now basically what happens, the Prophet ﷺ has established a base in Medina. First there were just 6 people, then there were 70 people. Musab was making more da'wah there as well. Obviously more Muslims didn't come in on Hajj as well. And he was establishing the base until, and what was happening in Medina is that they were fighting in Medina, and they were actually looking for a neutral leader. Because the problem is when the Aus and the Khazraj are fighting, whichever party you're going to take is the cause an imbalance. And so they were looking for a neutral leader. And the one that was supposed to be the leader was, his name was the hypocrite Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. He was the one that becomes the chief hypocrite in Medina. Is the one that was supposed to, like the foremost one to become the leader. The foremost one to become the leader if the Prophet didn't come. But the Prophet ﷺ, when the Prophet comes, he becomes actually the chief enemy. He is the one who actually spreads the rumor of the ifk. He is the one who basically the chief hypocrite of Medina. And so this is the preparation of it. And why those Muslims became Muslim more easily is because of the exposure to the Jews. Because the Jews had told them all the time the Prophet is coming. In fact, when those six came, they said to themselves, this is the Prophet that the Jews have been telling us. Let us take pledge to him before they do. So they were actually acting on the news of the Jews of Medina, and therefore Medina was much better prepared for the reception of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is a very brief account of some of the main events of the Meccan period. What happens now is that next in the Seerah we pray for the Hijrah. And so inshallah ta'ala tomorrow we start our Hijrah at 10 o'clock inshallah ta'ala, not the same Hijrah, but we start the journey that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took. So inshallah I'll be departing tomorrow morning, somebody will be staying inshallah. So the lessons we'll see how it goes, but if it continues it will be posted online for those who are still staying behind. But the idea now is that the class moves to Medina and we cover the Hijrah and the Medina period bi'iznillahi ta'ala. Barakallahu indi inshallah wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim. Inshallah what's going to happen is that tonight after 10 we're gathering again. We'll have a bit of some reflections and some dhikr, and then from there we'll be prepared to depart at 12 o'clock inshallah ta'ala for the Umrah. But when you come tonight, come in your ihram. So don't go back up and the buses wait for another half an hour. Come in your ihram, come ready for the Umrah so we can just relax for a few minutes and then we can go together for the Umrah inshallah ta'ala. Barakallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.